It really does look as if Canada is about to change forever.
The lines are drawn. The rhetoric is sharp. For Western Canada, the sentiment of being misunderstood and exploited has reached a fever pitch.
We're talking binding referendums. We're talking new regional governments. We're talking the most serious challenge to Canadian unity in a generation.
But what does it actually take to break up a country? This isn't just about a protest vote or a provincial act. This is about legal precedents forged in past battles, economic ties that bind, and the immense cost of divorce.
For decades, what's commonly called WEXIT, right, which involves the whole Western Canadian provinces seceding, WEXIT was dismissed and laughed at as nothing more than a fringe, peripheral issue. No more.
The true story of secession is not a quick exit, but a journey into a constitutional and economic unknown. There's been a significant political shift in Canada that's been building for some time, and it has just taken a dramatic turn. The concept of Western separation, a movement often referred to as WEXIT, has moved beyond the realm of political rhetoric and into the concrete world of legal proceedings. This is not a hypothetical discussion anymore. It's a situation with real-world legal action happening right now. The catalyst for this is a proposed referendum question on Alberta's separation from Canada, a proposal that has been formally referred to the courts for review. The political landscape in Canada's western provinces has been marked by a simmering frustration with the federal government for years. Issues ranging from carbon taxes to pipeline approvals, and a general feeling of being overlooked by Ottawa, have all contributed to a growing sense of alienation. This discontent, while often dismissed by some as a fringe sentiment, has now been given a new platform. The movement has found a voice and a mechanism to test its legal and political viability, which has been described by some as rattling Parliament Hill. As a report from Global News noted, nearly half of Albertans now support the idea of independence, indicating just how mainstream this conversation has become. The core of this new development is a special court proceeding that began in Edmonton. A proposed referendum question, which would ask Albertans if they agree that the province should become a sovereign country and cease to be a part of Canada, has been sent to the courts by the province's chief electoral officer. This referral is to determine if the question itself is constitutional and if it respects existing legal frameworks, including treaty rights. This is a crucial step, as it means the process is no longer just about public opinion or political rallies. It's about the legal foundations of the country itself. The act of formally posing the question to a judge elevates the debate and puts the federal government on the defensive in a way it hasn't been before. It's important to understand the context of this referral. The group that proposed the question, the Alberta Prosperity Project, had their lawyer, Jeffrey Rath, argue that the judicial review is premature. He suggested that the constitutionality of separation would only need to be considered if a referendum passed and negotiations began. However, the judge presiding over the hearing, Justice Colin Feasby, questioned this line of reasoning, implying that voters have a right to know the legal implications of what they are being asked to vote on. This is a significant point, as it suggests the court believes the public has a right to be informed about the potential consequences before casting their vote. This legal action has also highlighted a clear difference of opinion within the Alberta government itself. Premier Danielle Smith and Justice Minister Mickey Amery have been critical of the Chief Electoral Officer's decision to refer the question to the courts. They have argued that the question should be approved and only face a judicial review if it receives a majority vote from the public. This position has been supported by a letter sent to the court from a government lawyer, which stated that it is settled law for a province to consult its population on any issue via a referendum. The Premier's position, as described by Time magazine, is one of laying out a framework and challenging Ottawa to respond, a move that is putting pressure on the federal government to engage with the issue directly. The legal battle is not without opposition. There are several groups that have indicated their intention to make submissions to the court in opposition to the proposed question. This includes the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation, a group that has expressed concerns about how a separation would impact existing treaty rights. The fact that a First Nation is getting involved in the legal proceedings adds another layer of complexity and importance to the GI. Their opposition highlights a key constitutional issue that will need to be addressed if the separation movement is to move forward. The Chief Electoral Officer, Gordon McClure, in referring the question to the court, stated that he was simply following procedure. He noted that the seriousness and potential impact of a separation referendum invited judicial oversight. He also approved a competing question from a different group, which would ask Albertans if they agree the province should declare an official policy to never separate from Canada. This dual approach shows that there is a battle for public opinion happening on both sides of the issue. Ultimately, this first part of the unfolding drama is all about a political idea being put to the legal test. For a long time, Western separation was a concept that was either praised by a vocal minority or ridiculed by the rest of the country. Now, a formal legal process is underway to determine the very foundation of how such a thing could even be done. This shift from talk to action is the first major step in what promises to be a complex and highly charged political and legal battle. It's a moment that has forced the country to take the question of WEXIT seriously, no longer as a theoretical threat, but as a real possibility being debated in a courtroom. While the legal action in Alberta was a powerful opening salvo, it was merely the first symptom of a much larger regional malaise. The Brexit movement, far from being an isolated Albertan phenomenon, is an expression of a deeper sense of Western alienation that has found a receptive audience across the prairies and into the resource-rich northern parts of British Columbia. It's a feeling that has been simmering for decades, rooted in the perception that the political and economic interests of the West are consistently misunderstood and marginalized by a federal government whose priorities are dictated by the more populous provinces of Ontario and Quebec. This growing momentum is not just about a few politicians in Edmonton. It is a shared cultural and economic grievance that has gained significant traction among ordinary citizens who feel they have been left behind. Saskatchewan has emerged as a key ally in this regional push for greater autonomy. Its economic and political landscape is remarkably similar to Alberta's, with a heavy reliance on natural resources and agriculture. The province has long felt the sting of federal policies that it views as detrimental to its core industries. Premier Scott Moe has repeatedly voiced his frustrations with what he describes as unfair treatment from Ottawa, particularly regarding carbon taxes and environmental regulations that he believes disproportionately harm Saskatchewan's farmers and resource producers. He has been a vocal supporter of provincial rights and has indicated that while he is not interested in separation himself, he would not stand in the way of a plebiscite on the issue if enough people in the province demanded it. This stance is a calculated one, designed to pressure the federal government into changing its policies while also giving voice to the genuine separatist sentiments within his province. Moe's comments underscore a key aspect of this regional alignment. It is not necessarily a unified call for secession, but rather a collective demand for a fundamental rebalancing of power within the Federation. The joint statement released by Premier Smith and Moe, calling for national change and specifically listing grievances such as the oil and gas emissions cap and the West Coast tanker ban, serves as a powerful testament to this united front. In British Columbia, the story of Western alienation is more complex. Split along a geographical and economic fault line, the highly urbanized and politically progressive Lower Mainland, centered around Vancouver, often aligns with federal government policies on climate and social issues. This creates a powerful counterweight to the sentiments of the rest of the province. However, the situation is starkly different in northern British Columbia, a vast and sparsely populated region whose economy is almost entirely dependent on resource extraction. Here, communities built on mining, forestry, and energy projects feel a deep sense of disconnect from the urban centers to the south and from Ottawa. They see federal policies, often championed by politicians in places like Toronto and Montreal, as a direct threat to their way of life. The federal oil tanker ban off the northern coast, for instance, is a policy that is widely supported in coastal urban areas, but is seen as a direct assault on the economic viability of new energy projects and port development in the north. This frustration is exacerbated by new provincial rules that add layers of consultation with First Nations before mining companies can claim land for mineral exploration. While these rules are intended to protect Indigenous rights, many in the resource industry argue they create significant uncertainty and deter investment, leading to job losses and economic stagnation in a region that can ill afford it. This has created a powerful sense of regional grievance in northern BC, mirroring the frustrations of Alberta and Saskatchewan. The federal government's reaction to this mounting Western pressure has been a central part of the story. Rather than engaging with the substance of these regional grievances, the response from Ottawa has often been perceived as dismissive and tone-deaf. The federal government, under new leadership, seems to be continuing a strategy that focuses on national unity rhetoric and downplaying the legitimacy of the Western movement. Public statements from federal ministers and the Prime Minister have, on occasion, framed the concerns of the West as the short-sighted complaints of a few disgruntled politicians. This approach, which many in the West see as a continuation of previous governments' attitudes, only serves to inflame tensions further. Instead of acknowledging the validity of the economic concerns regarding resource development and federal overreach, the government has been criticized for relying on what are seen as scare tactics, warning of the dire consequences of separation, without offering a viable path forward for the West within the Federation. The federal government's focus on national unity is a valid and important goal, but it rings hollow to those who feel their economic prosperity is being sacrificed for the benefit of other regions. The federal government's response has also been complicated by its ongoing focus on national and international issues. With the new Prime Minister navigating complex trade relationships and geopolitical tensions, the Western grievances can sometimes be sidelined as a provincial matter rather than a fundamental challenge to the unity of the country. This lack of perceived attention further solidifies the Western belief that their concerns are simply not a priority in the halls of power. From the perspective of many in the West, they are not asking for special treatment, but simply to be heard and to have their economic realities taken seriously. The federal government's response, or lack thereof, has only served to fuel the fire of Western alienation, turning what might have been a fringe movement into a powerful regional force. The historical context of these grievances cannot be overstated. Western alienation is not a new phenomenon. It has deep roots that stretch back to the creation of the provinces and the implementation of policies like the National Energy Program in the 1980s. Each successive generation has its own list of complaints, but they all share a common theme: a feeling of being an economic hinterland for the more powerful central provinces. Today, with digital communication amplifying every perceived slight and providing a platform for like-minded individuals to connect, the movement has a new sense of urgency and organizational capacity. The legal actions and political statements are not just symbolic gestures. They are part of a coordinated effort to force a reckoning with the federal system itself. The question is no longer whether Western alienation exists, but whether the current federal structure can accommodate the demands of a region that is increasingly willing to consider alternative arrangements. The path forward for Canada will depend on whether its leaders can move beyond a reactive, defensive posture and instead engage in a genuine dialogue about the future of the Federation. The previous segments explored the foundational resentments fueling the WEXIT movement and the initial legal and political skirmishes that defined its modern resurgence. We saw how the push for greater provincial autonomy, or a firewall, began to take a more concrete form, moving from rhetoric to legislative action. Now, we turn our attention to the final act of this political drama, the constitutional and economic realities of what would happen if a province like Alberta were to actually attempt to separate from Canada. The discussion shifts from asserting provincial rights to the monumental question of nation building. The idea of a firewall is a strategic move designed to assert provincial control over jurisdictionally ambiguous areas without triggering the constitutional apocalypse of outright separation. Premier Danielle Smith's government in Alberta took a significant step in this direction with the Alberta Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act. This legislation, which has drawn both fervent support and fierce criticism, aims to give the province the power to refuse to enforce federal laws and policies it deems an infringement on its constitutional authority or harmful to its economic interests. The act is a legal and political gauntlet thrown down, intended to force a new relationship with the federal government. It is a powerful symbol of the deep-seated frustration that has grown over decades, but it is not a direct path to independence. Rather, it is an attempt to create a different kind of Canada, one where provincial power is dramatically elevated. The true test of a separation movement, however, is not a legal standoff, but the economic viability of a new nation. Proponents of WEXIT often frame the argument in simple terms. The West is the economic engine of Canada, and it is being held back by a federal government that disproportionately transfers its resource wealth to other regions. The primary target of this criticism is the Equalization Program, a constitutional mechanism designed to ensure that less prosperous provinces can offer comparable public services to their citizens. From the perspective of many Albertans and Western Canadians, this program is a one-way street, where their hard-earned oil and gas royalties are siphoned off to benefit provinces like Quebec, which they see as actively working to undermine their key industry. A separate Western Canada, they argue, would be freed from this burden, allowing it to keep all of its revenue/taxes and build a more prosperous society. The promise of a low-tax, high-growth Republic of Alberta is a powerful lure for many. However, the economic case for separation is far more complex and fraught with peril than this simple narrative suggests. Economists, regardless of their political leanings, point to the massive startup costs of creating a new country. A new nation would have to build its own currency and monetary policy, create its own diplomatic corps, form a military, and establish countless federal services currently run by Ottawa, from tax collection to air traffic control. This would require an enormous initial investment and a significant increase in bureaucracy. More importantly, it would eliminate the risk-sharing benefits of being part of a large, diversified economy. Currently, when global oil prices plummet, as they have done multiple times in the last few decades, Alberta benefits from the stabilization provided by the rest of Canada's economy. Without that safety net, a new Western nation's economy would be acutely vulnerable to the boom and bust cycles of the commodities market, potentially leading to a lower standard of living for its citizens. Another critical economic hurdle is capital flight. The history of Quebec's independence movement serves as a cautionary tale. Each time the threat of separation rose, major corporations, banks, and financial institutions moved their headquarters out of Montreal and into Toronto, shrinking the tax base and changing the economic landscape of the province for years to come. In the event of a serious separation push in Alberta, economists predict a similar exodus of capital, with companies relocating their head offices to major hubs like Toronto or Vancouver to mitigate political uncertainty. This would significantly reduce the tax revenues that a new government would need to fund its services, undermining the very economic argument for separation. Furthermore, as a landlocked nation, an independent Western Canada would face significant trade challenges. It would be reliant on its neighbors, particularly Canada and the United States, for access to ports and pipelines to get its key exports to market. A hostile or uncooperative Canada could charge significant fees for transit or even block access, making Alberta's most valuable product less profitable. Beyond the economic arguments, the legal and constitutional obstacles to separation are arguably even more formidable. Contrary to the idea of a simple divorce, a province cannot unilaterally declare independence. This was definitively established by the Supreme Court of Canada in the 1998 Reference Re Secession of Quebec. The court ruled that while a province has no legal right to secede unilaterally, a clear majority on a clear question in a referendum would create a political and constitutional obligation for the rest of Canada to negotiate in good faith. This ruling gave rise to the Federal Clarity Act, which gives the House of Commons the power to determine if a referendum question is clear enough and if the result represents a clear majority. The federal government has the final say on whether to begin negotiations, and any separation would require a constitutional amendment, which would need the approval of the federal government and a significant number of other provinces. It is not an easy process. The political hurdles are immense, as any separation would be a seismic event in Canadian history, requiring the division of the national debt, the distribution of federal assets, and the renegotiation of countless treaties and agreements, including those with Indigenous communities. The conversation around separation, therefore, is not a simple referendum question. It is a profound and complex challenge to the very foundation of the Canadian Federation. It touches on deep-seated feelings of identity, fairness, and economic justice. While the political momentum and frustration may be real, the road to independence is long, uncertain, and filled with significant legal, economic, and political challenges. It is a path that would not only reshape the West, but would redefine Canada itself, for better or for worse. The future of the movement will be determined not just by the passion of its supporters, but by the cold, hard realities of constitutions, economics, and international diplomacy. The coming years will likely see a continued push and pull between provincial autonomy and federal power, and whether that ultimately leads to a definitive breakup or a new kind of Canada remains to be seen.